Hi, welcome to Miss Music. Now, I have a confession to make, and if you're a fan of this band, then you're probably going to hate me. My partner bought us tickets to see My Chemical Romance live in Glasgow, and that's coming up in the next few days. And I have to admit, until very recently, I'd never actually listened to them. I don't think I even knew they existed. I hadn't listened to them even once. So given how enormous they are, I now realize that this is a fairly serious failing on my part. So in preparation for the concert, I spent the last 2 weeks listening to the Black Parade on repeat. And this is what I think of it. So it was released in 2006. The Black Parade arrived, I think, at the height of My Chemical Romance's cultural impact. Emo wasn't some kind of niche subculture anymore. It had gone mainstream. I genuinely have no idea how I missed it. To be fair, I was living in France at the time, and before 2006, I spent 4 years studying for a psychology degree whilst working full-time, so I suppose I was reasonably busy at that time. Still, that's probably not a good enough excuse. Now, at its heart, the Black Parade is a concept album, and honestly, who doesn't love a concept album? They are really one of my favorite genre of albums. The story revolves around the patient, a character reflecting on life, death, regret, and quite literally, he's guided through this process by a Black Parade. Now, wasn't there another album with a man who was in a drug-induced coma reflecting on his past, his present, his celebrity status that was slowly eating him alive? Pink Floyd's The Wall. Now, both albums are theatrical, both feature deeply troubled protagonists, and both have a song called Mother, or Mama, if you like. Coincidence? I don't know. But what impressed me is how effective My Chemical Romance borrow from a range of influences without ever sounding derivative. There's a bit of Queen, a bit of Bowie, there's a touch of Alice Cooper, some glam rock. Weirdly, Kurt Weill appears in this album, some punk, and even flashes of perhaps progressive rock, maybe. Yet somehow the results feel fresh, distinctive, and completely of its own. The concept also seems to have been expanded massively for the live shows, which means my preparation for this concert is starting to feel suspiciously like homework. But what makes this album work? The thing that struck me the most is how often this album changes gear. One moment you're listening to huge arena-sized rock anthems, and then the next you're hearing something far more intimate and vulnerable. Those shifts mirror the album's themes perfectly. Confidence collapsing into insecurity, bravado giving away to fear, hope fighting with despair. And crucially, the band sound incredibly tight. This is a polished record, but it never feels sterile. The rough edges are still there. When they need to be. And even Liza Minnelli turns up on the track Mama, which is a tribute, I think, to the campness of this album. I mean that in a good way, in a kind of cabaret camp way, which just makes this album work. Now, the opening track begins with the bleep of a heart monitor, immediately placing us at the bedside of the patient. We're not just listening to the story, we are witnessing the story. And I think that's what the live concert's going to feel like. Like much of the album, the song quickly explodes into something gloriously over the top, but it never trips into parody because there's genuine emotion underneath all of these theatrics. As the song reaches its climax, our protagonist flatlines. Everything descends into chaos, and the guitar solo goes full Brian May. It's ridiculous, but it's brilliant. It is really good, and it completely won me over. One of the album's greatest strengths is Gerard Way's vocal performance. Now, Alice Cooper has always worked best when he fully inhabits a character, and Gerard Way approaches these songs in exactly the same way. This isn't about technical perfection, it is about character. This is as much theatre as it is music. The delivery swings from swaggering confidence to near breaking fragility, sometimes even within the same song. It's theatrical, it's melodramatic, and somehow it feels completely sincere. By the end of the album, I found myself wanting to sit down with the lyrics and really unpack this story. And I've started doing that, and I'll have to work my way through the lyrics. So it's really a record that wears its heart entirely on its sleeve. And the vocals make sure you feel every ounce of it. When the Black Parade was released, it was both celebrated and mocked. Some critics, I think, thought it was just too overblown. But for some listeners, it was a life-changing experience. Years later, its influence is impossible to ignore, and My Chemical Romance has really proven those critics wrong. The album helped establish emo as something more substantial than a passing phase. It inspired countless artists and continues to fill arenas around the world. For many fans, it's tied to a particular moment in their lives, a soundtrack to growing up. And that's what the best records are. But what's interesting is that a new generation seems to be discovering the album for the first time. Looking at reviews and reactions online, plenty of people who were not even born when the Black Parade came out are now finding their way to it and finding their way to the concerts. And then there's the rest of us arriving 20 years late and wondering what took me so long. My first reaction to this album was that it was a bit much, a bit overblown, a bit overproduced. But the more I listened, the more it started to make sense, and the more it grew on me. In fact, I've gone from being mildly skeptical to absolutely loving this album. The Black Parade takes enormous creative risks. It's theatrical, emotional, ambitious, and occasionally ridiculous. But that's exactly why it works. Whether you loved it back in 2006, love it now, or are hearing it for the very first time, it's a reminder, I think, that rock music can still be grand, emotional, meaningful, without being afraid to look slightly absurd. And honestly, that is something worth celebrating. So thanks for watching. I really mean that. If you enjoyed this review, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments, where does the Black Parade rank for you? And perhaps more importantly, am I forgiven for taking 20 years to discover My Chemical Romance? It's so far the only album I've listened to by them. What should I listen to next?